Hi everyone. So yeah, thank you for all coming to see and hear about our lecture on illuminating our heritage. So it's something like that we've been working on for years. It's a project that I've been really passionate about. I've loved it. It's been very, very challenging, and I'm just really excited that we can finally share some of the hard work that's gone behind restoring the heritage lights. So I'm Lauren Crossley, a senior lighting designer from Arup, and I've been responsible for leading the heritage portfolio for Arup. I've got just over 10 years experience, and this project has nearly spanned that whole career. So I've been responsible for the design of the heritage lights and the replica lights. And then over to Iddy.
Yeah, so I'm Iddy. I'm from Metcraft Lighting. So we've had the privilege, or we've been given the privilege to actually restore these and produce the reproductions. So a bit of background about myself. I started out as a tin basher over 20 years ago and worked my way up. I'm the production manager now at Metcraft. But why choose Metcraft, I suppose, to actually do your heritage lighting and everything? So a bit of background about our company would be Westminster Bridge down in London. We refurbished that in the early 2000s. We also refurbished the heritage lighting in the Liverpool Library. We've done plenty down in London, whether it's the Crimea columns, on the Westminster Bank. There's just a whole list. We do modern reproductions, but we actually specialise as well in restoring heritage fittings.
I think, before we start, we can't not mention Purcell's involvement on the project, and in particular, Jamie Coath, who I know has given one of these talks. He's given us a lot of, valuable input into the restoration of the lights. So we're going to take you through a bit of a step back in time on the history of lights within the building, and then kind of how we came about classifying which ones were of heritage significance, and then how we were able to incorporate that modern technology into these very, very old lights. And then finally the replication and the restoration process, which is where I'll hand over to Iddy. So in terms of my involvement on the Town Hall project, we're just talking about the restoration and replication of the lights. However, I've been working on it since 2017, and there's a lot of, I'm doing all of the new lights as well as all of these old lights that we're going to talk about. Also Albert Square public realm lighting, I'm responsible for that, and all of the facade lighting that's going onto the building to bring it to life at night. And like I say, this has been my most special project that I'll probably ever work on. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a step back in time about the history of light within the building. This is just one of the rooms, so the banqueting room, back in 1877 when it was first opened to the public. You can see that there's two gasoliers hanging from the space, very, very decorative. So yeah, the building was originally lit with gas. However, by 1901, electricity started to be implemented within the building, and it was, the Town Hall itself was a very, very early adopter of electricity. I find it quite ironic, really, that the first room within the Town Hall to be powered with electricity was actually the gas office. So, but you can see that from the original gas photo that I showed you to, only a few years later, they've added in 4 lights above the minstrel gallery, which is in the background on the top right. And they've also put in another additional chandelier into the space. So then by 1950, the lighting itself hasn't actually really changed that much. You can still see the lots of the glass acorns. We've actually got a very similar one down here. So yeah, very, very similar to that 1901 version. And then in the 1980s, there was a refurbishment of some elements of Manchester Town Hall. And you can see that also applied to these lights. So that central kind of glass element has now gone, and we're left with still the same lights, but just a bit more of a modification to them. And then we come to 2017 when we started on the project, and you can see that, you know, these lights were now really requiring a bit of TLC. None of the glass acorns were there anymore. The lights over the minstrel gallery were kind of not what we hoped they would be, and I'll come on to that in a bit. So yeah, they needed a lot of TLC, and that was the case with a lot of the original lights within the building. They all needed varying levels of restoration. So the image on the left was probably, you know, that's kind of like one of the worst examples that we had in terms of there was no power to the light, none of the glass was there. It was had a lot of rust and degradation. So, you know, that was a real kind of task for Metcraft. And then going to the extreme, which is the one on the far right, which needed, you know, more of a lighter touch. Excuse the pun. So what we found when we brought it down and viewed it at ground level was that the paint itself had actually been relatively recently redone. So it really just needed a general clean. Obviously, you can see all the different light bulbs of different shapes. You know, we need to do a full electrical kind of strip out. But, you know, that was kind of one of the best examples. And we had a lot of the ones in the middle. But as well as the original lights, we had a whole selection of lights within the town hall that needed to be classified. We needed to determine which ones were original, which ones were new, which ones were detrimental to the building. And that, you know, kind of where did we start with that? And that was where we kind of went, you know, looking to see if there was any guidance out there as to how do we go about classifying these heritage lights, and how do we work on heritage buildings in particular with lights. And so this was where I developed a 6-step framework. Now, I'm only going to talk about these 3 elements today because these kind of directly apply to the restoration and replication of the lights. But just to very, very quickly take you through them 3 steps, we'll start with the research piece. And the research piece was something that I just, you know, it was probably my favourite part, and I would still be doing it now. I'm still finding out stuff now about the building. And the research really helped to identify, you know, the history of the lights within the building. And I'm going to throw a term at you, which you may have heard if you've come to one of these lectures before, which is gloom. And it's a word that I found out when working on this project, and it's to do with combination of gloominess with warmth. So that kind of like Dracula-esque feeling. And it was a word that actually Horace Walpole coined, and Alfred Waterhouse took as inspiration for how he wanted the town hall to feel when it's lit with light. So it's the idea of sunlight coming in through the windows, leaving big shadows on the floor, and then that warm hue from the lights. So as we talk through the restoration and replication of the lights, we also wanted to make sure that we preserve this feeling of gloom. Some of the cool things that we found out in that research process was that there was a lot of modifications to the lights depending on who visited, and in particular if the king or queen visited the building, that they actually would add in new lights along their routes or make changes to the lights, you know, a bit more gilding, for instance. And And then another element that was quite cool was, you'll see as we show you this light here, for instance, where we've got the exposed light bulb, which, is perhaps not to everyone's taste. However, when the building was first opened in 1901, first switched on with electricity in 1901, with the town hall, being a very, very early adopter of electricity, they wanted to show off. They wanted to show how ahead of times they were with, light bulbs. So that's why a lot of the lights are exposed. And we call it celebrating the light bulb. And then the classification process. So this step here was more of a way of us helping to determine or explain for listed building consent how we had classified which lights were original and which ones were relatively new. Some the new ones were quite obvious. Some of the older ones we thought were old, and they were actually new when we took them down. But we applied this tier rating to all of them. So I'll just very, very quickly just explain the tiers to you. So a tier 1A light is one that was originally installed, but it's never had electricity to it. So we will not be putting electricity back. It will just be a feature on the wall. 1B is one that was originally installed when the building opened, but it has had electricity added to it. 2A is one that was put in that very, very early electricity phase, so of very high significance as well. And then 2B is anything that was installed after the early electrification process up until when the town hall extension opened. And then the tier 3s, it should be quite obvious that they were modern interventions. So you can see that we applied a high level treatment to them, and then the ones that we're going to be concentrating on are them tier 1s and 2s in today's talk. So this was kind of the real pick a mix of lights that were classified. There was over 95 of them requiring restoration within the building. So quite a big job for Metcraft. So now that brings us on to that luminaire treatment and, the restoration piece. So what we've got in front of us here. And we'll start with the Great Hall. This was the Great Hall back in 1877 when the town hall first opened. You can see that there's these very, very large, impressive chandeliers lit with gas hanging from the space. And then over the years, this is the number of kind of interventions that has happened to these lights. We've decided to go back to that early 1901 version, being the first electric version of this light, which is the image on the top left that you can see. So again, that celebrating the light bulb piece that I mentioned previously is very clear there. So before we started on the restoration, we brought a sample of the lights down to view at ground level, because these lights are 7 meters up in the air. We can't see them very clearly, and getting them down was a process in themselves, and getting them back up will also be a process. But they weigh over 150 kilos each. They're large pieces, and you can see that there was significant amounts of dust and degradation to that light. As well as all of I don't know if you can see all of the cabling for the lights that's very visible within the centre of the piece. So I'm going to now hand over to Iddy. He's going to talk through the actual restoration process.
Yeah, so what we did to start with, we stripped some of all the electric cable in there, took all the old bayonet fittings out, then we give them an enzyme clean to see what we actually had from there with these fittings. All the arms, from being gassed to then being converted to electric, they'd been cut, so they were varying lengths and sizes. So we had to remake some of them as well, solder them up and all sorts. They were a bit bad actually, these arms. They were a mess. But this is probably one of the, I suppose this is the crown jewel in the town hall for the heritage side. These fittings are immense. To actually see them in person is impressive. But yeah, so we painted them, we've gilded them, that you can see here. The biggest task for us was then to put the electrics back in, but to hide all that cabling so it was discreet, so it can't be seen from ground level, really. As you can see here, it's all lit up, looking quite impressive, really. I mean, the photos don't do it justice, if I'm honest.
No, and it's a shame that probably no one will get to see these lights from, close up like we did. But one of the other pieces that we wanted to incorporate within these lights was trying to illuminate the ceiling of the Great Hall as well from them somehow, because the ceiling in the Great Hall is amazing. It's very decorative, but it's currently lost. So what we through a lot of kind of back and forth, we were able to find a spotlight that sits on top of each of the old gas arms. And when we lifted these lights up and viewed them from below or from ground level, we realised that you actually couldn't see the spotlights. They kind of blended in. And so again, it was that balancing act of weighing up, revealing the ceiling versus, trying to conceal a spotlight within these lights. And I think we've done a pretty good job, especially when you can see, what we started with versus where we're at now. They're going to be very sparkly when they come back in. So I'll now move on to another factor, which is, I suppose this is the more technical part of our presentation in terms of lighting technology. And it was, how did we incorporate modern lighting technology within these over 100-year-old lights? And this was probably one of the most challenging, complex pieces that we've worked on. So when we presented, I suppose the issues with the lighting in the town hall by the council, it was that they're having to go up there and replace the light bulbs. I think it was every week on all of them. It was a weekly cycle. The quality of the light itself was very poor, and there was little to no lighting control available. So the easy option would have been for us just to put back in, your standard household light bulb. That would have definitely been easier, but then we would have handed the building back with the same problems that we left it with. So that was where we really wanted to try and think of a way that we could bring in some LED technology. And you can see the obvious issue with this is the big ugly black box that sits on it, which is the heat sink, which removes heat from the light source. This also allows us to have a fully wireless control system within the town hall, which means we don't have all of them extra control cables, which are adding extra holes into the building fabric. But it was a question of, how do we do that? So that was where we took this problem to Metcraft.
Yeah, so with this, there was a lot of to and fro from Metcraft back to Arabs and back to Metcraft, and then eventually we've come up with this. So as you can see, you can't see the big black ugly heatsink. You can't even see the LED unit in there neither, which is quite impressive for us. The design on the outside.
Yeah, so this design is a crescent, and in the town hall, there's lots of ceilings, night sky ceilings. So we felt that bringing in some symbols like Waterhouse did into these modern elements was quite a nice touch.
Yeah, so once Arabs told us that like the moon crescent in there and everything, it was about the sizing and proportion of it. So that took quite a good collaboration between Arabs and Metcraft, really, to get to this. But yeah, the actual LED is all hidden within there, and we future-proofed it as well. So we've thought about, these do have a burn-in life. So in 10 years, they'd have to be replaced. We have a wiring harness. So the idea is that this is actually hidden in there. It's all fastened. And to make life easy, just pop the wiring harness out, unscrew this unit, put a brand new unit on the top, and then just pop this back in. And then you'll be back away then with your light. It's that simple, that easy. So we have thought about all the details, even down to the spade connectors. So all LEDs in the project that we're putting in, they all have a male connector on the LED and a female on the main wiring loom. So if this does get damaged when they're actually replacing them, they know straight away what's being done. Where all this is documented, there'll be almost like a encyclopedia of how these fittings are put together.
And we actually believe that this is, Manchester Town Hall is real pioneers of this technology on this scale within heritage lights. It's great that we've been able to bring this in. And you can also see on the photo on the screen, we've created a glass light bulb. So that sits on top of the module. So it's not your plastic. It's a nice glass light bulb effect.
Yeah, and then with this LED, this is a slightly bigger one. So we've got the gallery again. This one's posed most challenges for us, as you can see. So actually, these all hang upside down when they're fastened and screwed in. With these, we do have to have. We've had to overcome quite a few issues. If you look at the bottom of the gallery, it's quite narrow because what we didn't want was a big gallery going onto a thinner arm, so it all flows into it nicely. So we've actually had to come up with a spacer just for the bottom part because we've got the LED. It was the first one that you picked up.
Sorry, yeah.
So that LED unit actually gets hidden within this, so that again you can't see it. Same again with the wiring. Everything we've thought of that as we've come up together with these ideas is to make sure that we're future proofing all this, so that in the future when they do have to replace them, it's not a big project for them. It's not a big undertaking.
Definitely not a weekly task. So that was the most technical part of this presentation. So now we just wanted you to have that in the back of your mind as one factor that we've had to incorporate. So now we're going to play a game of Spot the Difference. But before we get on to the actual game, just a bit of background about the actual lights. So this is the reception room when it was lit with electricity in 1901. And then when we brought these lights down to view at ground level, we actually realised that there was a lot of the decorative scrolls missing. There was over 50 of them across 8 lights. So we thought they were in quite good condition until we viewed them down on the floor. So can I have a raise of hands if you think the black scroll is the original? Okay. And the gold one? Okay, well done. You got it right. But yeah, so Iddy will just explain how he went through them. We've got some down here actually for you to look at afterwards.
So really with these, the technique of actually making these scrolls hasn't changed over the years. The only thing that has changed is because they are hand forged, instead of having the metal warmed up or heated, with coke and coal, it's now done by electric. But other than that, the actual techniques are all the same. So these scrolls are made in 3 parts. You've got the main stem, that's hand forged, and then the leaf design in the middle, that is cast. And then the scrolls, I just want to point out as well, we've got to bear in mind the technology back in then to produce scrolls so tight and so neat is a masterpiece. It really, really is. To work on these is impressive, especially when we see some of the fantails of the scrolls and all the detail in. It's just a shame they're going to be so high up. So
now is your chance to review something.
And then they're just forged together. They're forged well together then. And then we get them back, and then we've put them all and replaced them all.
And they're only this big, by the way. You probably can't see the size of them on there. So then the next piece, I've called it First Impressions because it was the first light that you saw when you entered through the Albert Square. entrance. We believe that this was potentially it was definitely a later addition, but still of high significance. And we think that it was added potentially when one of the Queen visited. So as you can see, none of the actual light sources that are providing the functional light to the ground are working. And this is what it looked like when we brought it down to view at ground level. And you can see that, all of the glass acorns are missing. You've got the same cabling issue with lots of intrusive cabling. The finish was in quite, it was in a poor condition, really. We should also say we've had paint analysis completed on a lot of these lights. And when we got the results back for this light, it wasn't quite what I thought it would be. It was green. So the original colour was the green that you can see on the screen there. So Iddy's just going to explain what they've done.
So with this fitting, this was an unloved fitting by the time we got it, I think. The arms, they all had to be repaired. They were all bent and twisted. We cleaned this with an enzyme cut solution. We then sent it off to be bead blasted and polished. That's where we discovered that there was quite the brass band was fully brass. That's where it was decided that we would lacquer and polish this just to show it off, really.
Just to add as well, enzyme clean is spit, basically. I didn't know that, but it's spit. Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah.
Polish.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But even down when we had this fitting, the nice thing about this particular fitting, there's no actual modern screws in there. All the screws are thumb turns, so they're all handmade as well. Putting it back together was the same. There were some slight concerns with the weight on the arms with the new LED technology that's gone in there and the heat sinks. So we've actually discreetly strengthened the arms with stainless steel tubes on the inside, just so that you don't take away from the aesthetic look of this fitting.
And this is what it looks like. So, I think Metcraft have done a great job of bringing it, back to life. And I think you can't see any of the cabling. You can see the gilding, polished brass. Sorry. And, I think that the lights in particular, when we go back into the town hall, when it opens, hopefully you'll really see a significant, change.
One thing really for us to mention as well is, sorry about this, the poor condition it was in, it would have been easier just to replace with new. But because we do want to reinstall or reinstate the heritage pieces as whole as we possibly can, there's only 2 pieces on this particular fitting that are modern. And one of them was a brass finial that we had to have made. And then there's a leaf design. And this is where it's a shame you can't see these down on ground level. There's a leaf design over the top of the gallery. And that's it for this particular fitting. They're the only 2 pieces that are modern or new that we've had to do. And it would have been a lot easier if we could have just made brand new. That's a lot easier. That's it.
So then moving on to another light, which is the organ chandeliers, which are the ones also located in the Great Hall. So those are the ones that were actually mounted off the organ. These were added in 1901. So they're, when the building was electrified, these ones were put in. And what it is going to talk about is one of the, another traditional artisan process that we've used.
Yes. Yeah. So with this, gilding, we've actually put real 23 karat gold back onto these fittings. We've not gone for the cheaper option. So what you've got there, the photo on the far left is where we've primed it all after giving it a good spit and polish. And then the photo in the middle is where they put the size on. So the size is just, it's almost like a glue for the gold to stick to. And then the third picture on the far right, you can just see there that the gold is on there and it's just got to set solid and dry a little bit before it's brushed off. but the technique for this has not changed over the years either. This is a dying trade, the gilding. So we'll go through this. Photo on the far left is when we got it in. There's cabling all over there. There's quite a lot. To be fair, this fitting wasn't that bad, considering the arms weren't too bad. We just stripped it of all its electrical components. You can see in the middle where it's been cleaned. And then on the far right there, that's where the two of them are side by side, finished, just ready for us to wire them up.
And I think that when they go in next to the Great Hall big chandeliers that we showed you, that, you know, it'll look amazing.
Yeah. The other thing is we were discovering things with these all the time as we was going through them. We thought that there was stones.
Agate stones, yeah. But they were...
Fortunately,
yeah.
Just painters.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we're going to talk about the replicating of some of the lights, and, you know, why have we chosen to do that? And hopefully this photo will explain to you, you know, the reasons that we have. So this is in the old council chamber. The photo on the left was when it was first opened in 1877. And you can see that there's these really, really intricate gasoliers hanging from the space. Unfortunately, they've gone. They're no longer in the building or to be seen. And what was put back in place were these modern lights that you can see. So in this instance, you know, we felt that where the space is being restored, we need to restore it back to original. So this is where we replicate the lights. And it's not been easy to replicate, and I'll explain why. So we've got two types of replicas. We've got the slightly easier ones, which we'll call type 1, which are where we can give Metcraft a physical example of one of the existing lights, and they can use that as a template. Type 2 is where all we had was a photo or a couple of photos and old photos. So that's where we've had to piece together information and draw things, and there's some sketches on the floor as well that you can have a look at to give to Metcraft. So we'll start off by going through some of the replicas, and we're calling this one a new discovery because we thought it would be a replica. So this takes us back to them lights that I mentioned at the very start, where we have the 4 of them hanging over the minstrels gallery. This is the only photo we've got of these lights. And this was what was put in place when we took over. So we obviously need to put something back that's not that. So the original plan, and this is quite cool actually, we found it's an old lighting catalogue that Hartson and Purd are the manufacturers. And it was a Waterhouse approved manufacturer. And you can actually see some of the lights that are in the building within this book. So we thought, let's pick something from here and take inspiration from that. However, partway through the construction process, someone emailed me to say, I've found these lights behind a wall or in the town hall. Sorry, these light shades, is there anything that we could do with them? And so we thought, well, yeah, maybe these lights that we're basically making up that could go in the minstrels gallery, why don't we put in something that was in the town hall originally and be more honest and authentic to the space? So this was where I handed it over to Iddy and said, what can you do with this? And
yeah, apparently put them in the bin was 10 options. To be fair, this is a little unsung hero of the project, where we've actually stumbled across something old and the new fits it perfectly. So this is one of the pieces that will be going back in. The glass at the bottom, it just seems almost made for the gallery. We just couldn't have hoped for anything as easy as this. just to, as it's about sustainability and reusing material as well, the only thing on this fitting that is not heritage or that's not come out of the town hall is the top piece here that's going to go to the junction box where it's going to hang, and then just this small piece down here at the bottom that's holding all the LED and the lighting. This tube has come off one of the corridor fittings, or the many corridor fittings we got back. And so, first of all, I did one of these. Really proud, nice and easy. I thought, yes, nice win for Metcraft here. Arabs came along and said, Lauren actually, she's got a very keen eye for detail. A really keen eye for detail. The banding, so when we actually lit this up, there was a really dark ring, and it didn't give the glooms effect that is needed or wanted through this project. So we just had a little bit of tweaking to do, and I think we've made you happy in here, aren't we?
Can we'll show you, see what you all think.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So there we go. And that was just cleaned with soapy water.
Yeah, a bit of elbow grease and soapy water.
Yeah. So then we'll take you through another one, which I'm calling In the Cells. So some of you might be aware that within the basement of the town hall are some original police cells, and they'll be coming back as part of that visitor experience offering. These were all the photos that we had, and obviously we want to make it as authentic as possible. So we want to bring back the lights that are in there. So we had that photo on the right. But then I also found this kind of similar looking light that's within the Manchester Police Museum. So I thought, okay, can we try and merge the two together? And I did some sketches and then gave them to Metcraft and said, "What can you do this?" And then Iddy's going to explain how they did this.
So these sketches, do you know what? They're actually good sketches, to be fair. She undersells how good she is. This, I would say, this is our bread and butter. This is a modern thing that we do, make it look old. So on this fitting, the whole lot of this fitting was flat metal at one point, all sheet metal. It's all been lasered out, folded. The challenges really on this one was to try and get the sleek design of it, but also hiding the cabling at the back. So that everything's about trying to be discreet as possible with this. So the cabling actually comes out up this discrete tube, and then from here the lid will hide the junction box it goes into, so you won't even see this. It's open at the back, and it's clear glass on the four front sides. So this was quite an easy one for us. Spot welding, the technique we've used on this is spot welding. We've plug welded on this, just so you don't see any of the joints, so it's all seamless. And really, yeah, this one's a nice one.
And you'll see that the dark red is common on all of the lights, and that is kind of visible throughout a lot of the town hall pieces. So yeah, this was what the paint sampling came back with as well. So yeah, this was it lit. So we're actually going to show you this one lit up as well. We will leave these will be here for the end.
I won't mind being locked up if this is what I had to walk past. It's just
I don't think they're in the prisons now. So then we'll talk about another light that we've looked at, which is again reusing old materials. So this is the corridor. All of the corridors on ground floor and level 1 were lit with these globe lights. It's, that idea of gloom, is very visible in them photos. However, this was what it was like when we started on the project. So originally we thought that these lights were entirely new replicas. We didn't think any parts of them were original, until we found this light here, and it actually pointed out that a lot of the pieces are original. So it was great that we were able to reuse a lot of elements from here. And there's 46 of these lights going back into the town hall in total. And we thought they'd be entirely new material. So Iddy's just going to go through the piece.
So the process with this one, basically everything that in this on this fitting, except for 3 items, are original. So the 3 items that we've got that are not original is the cast alley base that actually hides all the electronics and the heatsink in there, and then there's a globe. Now the globe, that's hand blown. They were hand blown as well. So there's imperfections within the globes, just as there would have been 100 plus years ago. So that caused a lot of a nightmare. That. And then the ring at the bottom, that's a modern piece, just so that the twisted bars can all go to it. And then this actually houses the LED, and this is how it all attaches. But everything from the balls, this weighs a ton. You can have a feel of it afterwards. And this is how they came into us. And then, as you can see on the photo on the right, they're all nicely polished up and they're lacquered now as well. What was discovered with these as well is the surface finish on these is Japan blacked, so it's like a live surface finish, and we've replicated that as well. So the actual fittings that are going back in have all been dipped and they've got an oil on, so they've all been Japan blacked. So this is just a close-up of the base that we showed you. How we've actually hidden the LED and the unit inside there with the glass globe over the top of it. I'm quite impressed with this one. This was the first one that we had lit up as well. I think
the clicker's not working.
Something had to go wrong.
So I mean, like Iddy was saying, the light source itself is in the base, which is how it originally would have been. It would have been lit with gas burning up. So we wanted to conceal that light source entirely in that finial at the bottom. And it really represents that.
I think, the photo, the centre photo and the one on the right really doesn't do it justice. We've seen this lit up and the effect on the brass and everything else is just fantastic. It really makes it come alive.
And then this just shows, how well we think we've been able to get back to that original 1877 version of the light, and we'll be bringing that back in. So that'll be, when you step back in the corridors, this will be one of the main lights that you see throughout. And this is the finale piece. So I mentioned that how we've had to rely on photographs for a lot of lights, and this is one example. So this is outside the Great Hall in the corridor, and originally the corridor was lit with these gasoliers hanging from the space. But then in 1901, these lights were put in, and hopefully you can see some similarities here. Very, very different to, anything else within the building. And we actually felt that taking it back to the 1901 electric version was much better than trying to bring back a replica of the gasolier and then attach some light bulbs to it. It just didn't feel authentic to the town hall. So while we were working through that process, we found there was a catalogue given to us, a historical document that described some of the significant objects within the town hall, the best preserved examples. And these were identified because of their monetary value, their artistic significance, or just their historical value. And these lights featured in there. So that was, again, cemented the fact we need to bring these ones back. We need to replicate them. So I am going to just read what it actually described these lights as. So I'm reading off the screen because I want to get it right for you. So it said 4 scrolls branching into a grotesque horned head, surmount a writhen brass ball, a globe formed of latitude and longitude bars encircled by a band pierced with bees to represent the city's crest, finished in dark red with partial gilding. So this was it here. Now, one of the small pieces of the lights were the grotesque heads that were mentioned. And just to show you the evolution of just one piece of it, Iddy's going to explain what happened here.
Oh. Yeah, so the dragon head scrolls, as we refer to them. So the one on the far left of your screen is currently underneath my desk cutting several pieces out of frustration and anger. We do, however, have the middle piece still. So this was what we presented, we put together, and really it felt that it wasn't doing the piece justice, or it wouldn't do the fitting justice. So on the right-hand side there, you can see an actual, well, what's on there is a hand-forged, grotesque, horned scroll. Oh. The process of this, again, it's traditional techniques. The dragon head, or the head is the head and neck is one piece, just made out of stock material. So that's just a piece of bar. It's heated up, split, and then you can see all the detail that they've done with this. And then you've got the scroll itself. That's a second piece. The scrolls on these, they thin out and they also fan out as well, so they call them a fishtail. This scroll is actually quite dominant over all the heritage fittings. And yeah, again, you'll never see them, not unless you can get up there. And then the tongue is actually just formed. They're actually nails, believe it or not. And then they've just put a thread on the end, drilled and tapped them and screwed them in. And if you look in this photo here, you can actually see them putting all the detail in on the face. So they actually heat the head up so it's a cherry red, and then they strike it with a punch to put the eyes in and put the mouth in and the eyebrows. When you come up and have a closer look, you see all the detailing that's actually gone into this. It's not just a block with some horns and a tongue.
Again, that would have been the easier option.
Been the easier option. And then here, this is just where, to get the angle of them so they sit right, so they actually look down upon the fitting, because it is stock material, we've had to cut them. They've all been individually marked out as well, just to make sure they're right. We've made a template for these and everything. So we don't look at this fitting as one. From making it, it's not one fitting. We've got several components or key components. The dragon head scrolls is one. The rhythm ball is definitely another one. Definitely.
The ones.
There's the original ones down here we produced, and Lauren's keen eye of detail didn't like it. But to be fair, it is right. But yeah, you can see us here. We're putting them together. Now, for this project, we've took an apprentice on as well, which, is fantastic. He's got a learning opportunity that he'll probably never have in his life again. So the skills, the techniques, everything that he's picking up and learning really quickly as well. I mean, it took me 10 years before I was even allowed on a heritage piece, but 2 weeks and his head nice.
Yep.
But you can just see the detail that we're going through with everything. So like I say, you've got the rhythm ball. These leaves are separate. They're lasered. Then they've been pressed out to actually give them the shape, both longitudinal and latitudinal, so they sit flat against the ball. Then we've got the leaves here. I think on the intro video, you'd have seen our apprentice actually folding them. The globe, that's another issue.
I can go through this. So, as part of this process, every 2 weeks, myself, Graham from Lend-Lease in Purcell, they will come and we'll go and inspect what Metcraft have been doing, and the only way that we can really kind of agree or say yes is to see physical samples. And they presented the one on the left, and we were just looking at it thinking it's just, something doesn't look right. And then we had to kind of say, sorry, can we just expand it all a bit, make the the rhythm ball bigger. It's not flat, and so we started on the left, and then through a few iterations, got to the one on the right, which is the agreed sample, which was then painted, and that's the process that we're following on all of the lights.
Yes, yeah, no, we definitely just to research, we get the sketches, as you can see down here, of Laurent from Arabs, and then we do a more detailed drawing, like a working drawing for them. It is difficult to try and visualize what we draw, so the samples are really a key part. The things that changed on this, the bandings, the positioning of the banding,
the size of the glow.
The list could go on with this.
Yep. And then we finally, get to say, okay, let's paint it now and gild it. So everything that you can see there is the gilding that Iddy had mentioned. We've got the dark red paint, but we've also then, when we went there and first viewed it, there wasn't the red bands on there. And that was when we decided, actually, can we just put a couple of these red bands on there, because we realised on a lot of the original lights that they actually had this bright red band on them. So we felt that given where these are going and where the Great Hall ones have got the red band, let's just add that extra last finishing touch. So yeah, I think
I just although this is a replica, there's actually one piece that's original from the town hall. It might sound daft, but it is right at the bottom. There's a small piece that is one of these. So wherever we can, we try and use what's come out of the town hall.
And so yeah, I think you're gonna.
Should we put this on?
Yeah.
There you go, Graham.
So yeah, that's the the end of our presentation, and hopefully you've all learned something about what we've been doing on these heritage lights. And each light that's going back in has got a story, and we could do a lecture every day, I think, about all of them. But yeah, it's been a really great project for me to be involved in, and sadly I'm going, so I won't get to see them all.
You will.
Finished.
every step of it.
So, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I do.
Thank you.